Okay, so full transparency, I didn't expect to be making a Japan video so soon. However, as the old saying goes, place Japan. The last video did good, and I did get some questions about the actual university and the actual living in Japan part. Was it kind of clickbait last time where I said living Japan and I talked about the parts where I wasn't living in Japan? Yes, because I didn't think I'd make another one. But here we are. So, we're gonna call this being in university in Japan. How about that? So it will be focused mostly on that. So for context, I was in Japan in 2020, the year everyone wanted to be in 2020 with the Olympics, but as you know, that didn't happen. But instead, I was in a university called Kwansei Gakuen, which is kind of near Osaka, but not really. It's kind of in that awkward in-between Osaka and Kobe. And then like upwards is Kyoto, I think. It was pretty close. It was a good spot actually, because you could really easily go see all the sites in the free days I had, which weren't many, but anyway. I did a university program for about a month. It was a short-term intensive Japanese learning program. The goal of it was to become really Nihongo jozu, as they say. So that was the hope. Go to Japan, study a lot, learn a lot, and try to live on my own for the first time ever. I think that context is key when I assess my experience living in Japan, because it's worth saying that was my first time living on my own. And when that happened, I was 20. Yeah, I was still 20. I was nearly turning. Wait. No, I was 19, and then afterwards I turned 20. The passage of time is really confusing. Bear with me. We're here to talk about Japan, not maths. So, for people who didn't see the other video, and I don't expect you to, but if you'd like to, go for it. For context, my first few impressions of Japan weren't the most positive. Despite that, I marched on and kept practicing and studying because it's kind of all I had. That said though, this video won't be a negative gravy train of saying Japan bad or this country bad or this culture bad. You can't really generalize something like that. So while I'm going to say things I didn't enjoy and things I did enjoy, just view that's not a holistic view of a culture. This is just my experience being in Japan for a month. Now, why do I have the authority to talk about living in Japan as a trans person despite being there for a month? Because no one else makes videos about this, apparently. I couldn't find many videos about being trans in Japan, right? So until really big videos of people that have been there for decades or something come out, I hope this suffices for whatever you're looking for. Whether you're watching this because you want to go to Japan, or you're watching this because you are just curious about the trans experience in Japan. As a foreigner, disclosure, the experience of a foreigner living in Japan that's trans, very different than if you're Japanese and you're trans. And I admit, there's a lot of privilege that comes with being a foreigner in Japan. Let's not understate that. So, let's actually talk about the experience. So, the year was 2020. I know it's not a year most people want to remember, but that context is important to the story. I think the news of this like virus thing showed up like the day before, maybe 2 days or something, on the lead up to this big trip. I was terrified because for context, media was really harping on about the place that it originated in and tried to spin that as it being that country's virus or whatever, which is not a very helpful narrative. But anyway, it's worth stating that geographically, Japan's very close to China, so if it were to spread globally, the assumption was it would go to Japan pretty quickly. And I was there for a month. Who knows, right? It only just became a thing. I haven't been in a pandemic before. Can't imagine most of you have. But I went on the plane anyway. I cried. Just letting you know, I cried a lot. That was very stressful. But I had a goal. I wanted to get an experience of living in Japan, see if I like it, and learn extra Japanese to become ultra Nihongo jozu. That was the goal. So we got there. Well, I got there. I was on my own. And from the get-go, it's worth stating that it was really cold. It was winter at the time. And because of that, a lot of the girls' clothes that I packed with me to look feminine and euphoric, it was too cold to wear those. So I kind of had to boy mode because all my coats looked too boyish. I wasn't intentionally trying to boy mode, it's just, other than that awkward middle stage of some aspects of transition. So my voice, my voice is more like this, right? A little different. But the clothes, I was wearing these giant, jackets to try to keep warm. But I did wear, full face of makeup and, long hair, kind of this length, and I wore them in cute ponytails. I think I worked with what I had. And I wore the scrunchie, because I always wear the scrunchie. A commenter asked about it. I got it in Japan, in a trip. And I kind of view it as, a big independence thing, because my first trip by myself, I bought it. That's why I wear it in every video. And probably every video to the end of time. So, we get there. Japan time. Place Japan. The dormitory situation was a bit awkward because I was trans. Because some people could tell I was, living as a girl, and some people just thought I was a very feminine looking boy. So people didn't know what to call me. Names got awkward, pronouns got awkward whenever we were using English. Because there was a lot of English in the dorm because originally half the tour group, half the class was meant to be from China. That obviously couldn't happen during that specific point in time. So it was mostly a bunch of Australians and a couple of Europeans. No Americans. I don't know why. Maybe it's a weird time for them. Who knows? So we arrive. We've made it. This dormitory, I did a special consideration. I emailed the university staff and managed to get a room to myself. However, I was still on the boys' floor. Because, pro tip, Japan doesn't argue with paperwork. And unfortunately, my paperwork wasn't updated yet. So my passport still said male. So they gave me the boys' floor, but they were very nice and gave me a room to myself. The person that was meant to be the roommate got a room to himself, and he was very surprised. I don't think he ever learned why. So you're welcome, random person that I haven't seen since. So the dorm situation was a bit awkward because I looked fairly girl to some people, I looked fairly boy to some people, and I was on a boys' floor, but I wore girls' clothes when I could. Inside the dorm itself, I wore skirts and that kind of thing. But when I went outside, yeah, I had to get warm. It was cold. Classroom experience, nothing too bad, to be honest. I just think people just didn't know how to talk to me, I guess, about it. So they kind of skirted around it on purpose. I know there's one Japanese university student, and I think he asked oh, is your hair long because you play guitar? So I said, not related. Kanke ga nai desu. That kind of thing. But I think they just kind of gave up after a while. So I didn't make as many connections as I'd like to, but what are you gonna do, right? But there was some unique challenges with being a foreign trans girl in Japan. Showering. So they were isolated showers, but still in a men's shower room and a women's shower room. And the showers opened at 7. Officially. I snuck in before it opened. I would sneak into the men's shower room and shower as early as possible. I think I woke up at I'd wake up at 4 a.m. every single day during that experience, and I'd sneak in and use the men's showers and get the heck out. Because I just didn't want to deal with it. And I admit, I think this dampened the experience a lot because it was cold. I was freezing. My lip got I don't know what the word is, but when it's really cold, sometimes a lip can crackle and become really gross. Yeah, it was so cold that my lip became all bumpy. My hands started like not being able to move properly. They're so red. I mean, that came down to me being Australian, but me waking up at 4 a.m. and showering and then getting out of the shower at that time, not convenient. I don't even remember if there was hot water like at that time because I don't think they had it turned on. So the showers were pretty cold actually. But I don't know if that's a false memory or me misremembering, or if it was just that cold I didn't even notice the hot water. Who knows? So my strategy was to do that, get out of the shower, and then really quickly shave because that was before I had laser hair removal. Which by the way, I highly recommend laser hair removal if you're going anywhere when you're trans. It just cuts out a lot of trouble for trans girls. Other than that, there was some experiences, like some people wanted to go out to like onsen baths, hot springs, and they would invite me, but I didn't want to cause any trouble, so I said no, I think. But I feel really bad for saying no because maybe I could have made friends that way. Like I ended up adding people on Facebook after the whole thing, but I don't think I made any like lifelong connections. But if any of them ever message me, I'll be happy to reply, to be honest. So I know you might be thinking, that didn't sound too bad, right? And the thing is, it wasn't. It wasn't. To be honest, my horror stories of Japan are mostly before I started trying to live there. However, I saw a glimpse of what life could be like if I did live in Japan. That 1 month taught me a lot about if I was ready to be on my own, which I wasn't. I kept eating convenience store food and got sick. My bad, don't do that. Just because there's a convenience store in front of your dorm, don't do it. Please cook meals. But I think it came down to I handled it, but I wasn't having as much fun as I thought I would. Traveling for a holiday is very different than traveling for study, and that's fine. And I found it really rewarding to like get better at Japanese, and I found the activities they made us do really fun actually. We had to like go around the campus and like interview people and ask them like what's the most difficult part of English and that kind of thing. And you know, that was a really wonderful memory and I treasure that really holistically. It was a really great time, and there was also like really nice local shops. There was a really nice local ramen shop in Nishinomiya. If you are in Nishinomiya and you want to go to a ramen shop, highly recommend the ramen shop that I'm gonna hopefully show on screen. There's also a sushi shop nearby which is pretty good too. The ramen shop was a standout for me, not because the food was any more high quality than other ramen places, but like the owner was so nice, and not in that like performative kind of way a lot of restaurants do. It felt a bit more genuine because the town was a little smaller, I think. Like he actually asked me questions and wanted to see how I was feeling about my time in Japan, and that was really sweet actually. And I think he's like a volleyball coach for the local school or something. So I hope he's just overall a cool guy and I got a good impression of him. But at the end of the day, the Japan I experienced was a Japan that heard news of what happened in 2020 at the end of the day. For context, Japan's gearing up for the Olympics. Japan's gearing up to do this really big event in a fairly like prideful country, and it couldn't happen. And granted, it was already pretty unpopular, but then it became even more unpopular. And then like, it's worth stating, I went to I think it's the Fushinari Shrine in Kyoto, and it was empty. No one was there. Completely empty shrine. Why? because no one wanted to go outside during what seems to be a pandemic. Fun. Enjoyable, wow. So, had fun. Which isn't the conclusion I thought I would have making this video, to be honest with you. Because, again, I make videos pretty off the cuff on purpose, so I get a very, like, raw or, like, personal perspective on it. When I make these videos, I'm very reflective on purpose, because I think that's important. And I won't sugarcoat it, as I said in the other video, I had a lot of bad experiences in Japan. But I guess if you're looking for it like this, I guess those experiences didn't happen then, I guess. So being a university in Japan, you know, that's pretty good actually. It had complications, it had challenges, but you know what? I had a good time. There were hard parts, like those 4 a.m. mornings when I was freezing cold. And it was a bit hard to be seen as a girl when, like, your lip looks all, like, wacky with the freezing cold and, like, you're not able to wear as many gender-affirming clothes as possible. But I got to go to shops and buy girls' clothes for myself during it. I got to go get some cute Pokemon plushies. I got to try new food. I went to round 1 in Osaka, which is like the coolest place literally ever. But at the end of the day, maybe it's more a case of I viewed it easier to transition in Australia than Japan. And I guess that's kind of the situation, huh? I didn't expect that to be where I was at with it, to be honest. I didn't really experience any transphobia at the university because it's a university, right? Universities are as progressive as a country usually is. So, I guess because I felt alright in the Japanese university, but not like super great, I guess. Because I definitely preferred the Australian universities I went to. But, you know, I think that's fine. I had a life-changing experience, and that's pretty cool. Now, maybe if I got to do that experience a bit further into my transition, maybe it would have been better, but that I'll never know. Ultimately, I chose to stay in Australia and not do a career related to Japan. And that's fine. And I don't think the conclusion needs to be Japan good, Japan bad. And it doesn't need to be place Japan either. Places are just places, and you know, in a way, Osaka became a second home in a way. Even though I was only there for so little. I felt welcomed in some ways and unwelcome in others. And upon reflection, maybe more welcome than I remember. Which I wasn't expecting when I made this video. That trip was actually the first time I had takoyaki, which is like octopus balls. Like, no, it's like a bowl of octopus. It's not like the balls of an octopus. And yeah, I love takoyaki. But you know, it's just place. Even if it's place Japan, it's just place. Japan's working culture isn't exactly one I want to thrust myself into. And I couldn't really see a future where I was there long term and raise like maybe I meet a boyfriend and like start a family. I can't see me doing that in Japan. And I admit to myself that if I did, I'd probably try to move to Australia for a future kid to go through that schooling instead. Is that the bias in me? Maybe. It's hard to say. But I guess it's less the trip itself, but I think the time I spent in Japan for a little longer than a trip made me think, well, more seriously consider what a future there would be like, I guess. I think spending a month there like demystifies Japan a little bit in your head. Now it's cool that Japan has all this like cool pop culture stuff and like video game stuff, but more and more that kind of stuff's available everywhere now. So I don't feel like it has the same luster, I guess. I mean, I remember teenage me wanted to live in Japan specifically for arcades. And well, Australia has some pretty good arcades now, actually. We have Taiko no Tatsujin and that kind of thing. Dance Rush too. All the games I would have loved to play in Japan. So, you know, in a way, Japan came to me, in a way. All like the weeby pop culture things I was interested in came to me. I started playing like a karaoke game on my Switch, which is basically the same experience in some ways as karaoke in Japan. And yeah, it just, I don't know, just living there for a bit demystified it a bit, I guess. Now, there were some pretty interesting memories, I think, but not too many related to gender. I think it was just people feeling a bit awkward and not knowing what to call me and that kind of thing. But I have a memory I wish to share, and I hope this inspires hope for any trans person that is interested in going to Japan. During our university program, we had to create it was like a tourism poster for like a place. I can't remember what place. I think we picked a zoo or something. I can't remember if we had to make up a place or like advertise a real place. It's really fuzzy in my head, I won't lie. But we got these big posters and we held them up and we had to advertise to the university students in Japan why our place is cooler, and they had to pick where they would want to go. I think we won, but maybe that's a bit naive for me to remember. But the memory that stuck with me was that was one of the days it was warmer, and I wore this like flowy pink top with a like leather jacket. It was really cool, and I felt cute skirt, because that was near the end of the trip and I was getting a bit more used to the temperature. And a bunch of people walked past and said, "Wow, she's cute." Like, you know, like, "Wow, so cute, wow." All the kawaiis you can imagine. And that was nice. Because usually when you get complimented in Japan, which happens a lot because I think it's just more common to compliment people in Japanese. Maybe a bit of an obligation socially, who knows. But I found that when I presented as a guy, they would always say stuff like ikemen, or like, which is like handsome, I guess. Or they'd say, "Wow, you're so tall," or that kind of thing. Hated it. Hated that stuff. But I was complimented in a feminine way in Japanese, and that was pretty good. I won't lie to you, that was good. That made it pretty worth it. But I think it was just bad timing at the end of the day. I mean, I think I went to Japan at possibly the worst time I could have. At least in my lifetime. And I made the most of it, but I don't think it really sold me on living there. And that's fine. I'm gonna visit again. That's for sure. I'm happy to do that. I feel like if I lived there, I would have become the forever tourist and never seen as a part of their community in a sense. You don't really become a part of them in a sense. You're just kind of a mysterious forever visitor. And I guess I didn't want to be that. I guess I got a taste of that when I was there at university. Even a month in, everyone talked about it as if I just landed off the plane. And that's fair, I kind of did. But I didn't get a feeling that would ever change. I feel like if I stayed there, I would have been asked, "When did you get here? When are you leaving?" I felt like I'd be asked that forever. And I admit, it got a bit exhausting when people went. It's the whole like, you know, "Nihongo jozu, wow, your Japanese is so good." It kind of grates on you after a while. It makes you wonder, am I actually Nihongo jozu? Or are they just saying that? So the compliment kind of loses its meaning. But would I recommend Japanese university programs for trans people? Yeah. If you're interested in trying it, it's a good way to try. Try to get your paperwork sorted though. You'll have a way better time than me if you do that. At the end of the day, I feel like I had a very limited experience. But it was experience enough for me to decide I wanted to stay where I was. And that's fine, I think. I didn't have to prove anything. I didn't have to commit to Japan forever. That's fine. And at that stage of university, you know, we're doing like JLPT N2 or even some N1 stuff, which that N1 stuff blew over my head. That was crazy. We had to read like legal documents and stuff. I was like, no, I can't even do that in English. As far as every Japan experience I had, that one was probably the smoothest overall. Maybe times are changing, I don't know. But it was way better than my first few times there. Which wasn't the conclusion I expected yet again. But here we are. Sure, I freezed. And I got misgendered a lot. But I think there was a time where I didn't advocate for myself, so maybe that wouldn't have happened if I went there now. Maybe things would have been different, but I think going back would solve the gender affirmation aspect, the trans-specific aspect of living in Japan. But it wouldn't fix the general feeling of living in Japan, the thing everyone living there experiences when they move. And I think the reason I didn't end up living in Japan had less to do with me being trans and more to do with it just not being my vibe. And that's fine. You can have a positive experience but decide that's it for you. That's fine. I think a lot of YouTube videos about Japan is very extreme, I think. It's either an enriching place of flawless culture or the worst place to ever be, or that kind of thing. That's fine. We can be in the middle. That's fine. So, I know this one wasn't as trans-specific as I expected, but I hope this reassured that trans people can experience all the other things that people experience that live in Japan. We can overcome some little hurdles and ultimately have a very similar experience to others. And ultimately that's kind of the goal of transition in some ways. But if you're looking for a place to move where you can find a deeply enriching queer community, unless you're like literally moving to Tokyo or something and you're okay with like nightlife, there probably isn't that much for you, and that's okay. You don't have to move here, right? You can just enjoy Japanese for the sake of enjoying Japanese. That's where I am now. I just study it because I like it. I don't have to prove anything anymore. I never did have to prove anything. You should do language for fun. And I think the impending doom feeling of one day leaving everything behind for Japan, I think that weighed on me. I don't think I made an objectively good choice not moving there, but I didn't make a bad choice either. And that's okay. If you've had experiences living in Japan as a student, let me know how that went. And I hope it was better than mine. But don't be afraid to share if it was worse or better or about the same. Ultimately, 1 month cannot decide a holistic picture. But I think 1 month is enough for you to decide for yourself what you want. So, what are you going to do? I learned a lot of Japanese through it, so I'm thankful. I got to experience a lot of things. I got to see cool stuff. If I can find the photos, I'll try to show photos throughout this video. And I hope this slightly more uplifting Japan video was a nice change of pace. I feel like the last one was a bit too negative. But hey, this video kind of helped me realize that I actually had a pretty good time, despite everything. Even with a pandemic, freezing cold, and that awkward middle stage of transition, it was still fun. I got to hit taiko drums and go see shrines and learn more Japanese. Hey, I view that as a win. And if you want to see more Japan videos, let me know. I've had a lot of time to process my feelings to Japan, and I'm happy to talk more about Japan if that's what people want, because alas, place Japan. I'll see everyone next time. Stay hydrated and know that you are valid.